I'm here today with Nick Roberts, a prolific writer who has managed to scare many readers who consider themselves unscarable. He is the internationally best-selling author of The Exorcist House, which won the 2023 Books of Horror Indie Book Brawl, Mean-Spirited, Anathema, and many other horrifying novels, along with two story collections, It Haunts the Mind and Nocturnal by Nature. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, he also has a master's in teaching and a doctoral degree in leadership studies. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I could only fit so much into that bio, so I know I missed something. Tell me what I missed.
I was like in that zone where I'm trying to think of something to say rather than listen. So you could have said anything about my body. You could have made anything up and I wouldn't have caught it just now. So
Darn it, I could have made that so much funnier then.
yeah,
Missed opportunity.
yeah. Oh well.
Well, we can start with an easy question.
Yeah.
So, how did you first get into writing and why horror?
Why horror is I've been asked that so many times, and I honestly come up with different responses each time. And right now, my mind is going to like seeing those early Goosebumps covers as
Hmm.
a kid because I know I got into drawing and coloring monsters when I was really little. And I
Cool.
don't know why I gravitated toward that. I just know my mom got phone calls in first grade, and luckily she was an educator in the district and was like, "That's just Nick. He's okay." That's um, but yeah. So the drawing kind of spawned into writing just because I wanted those little creations to talk. And I was fortunate enough to have parents who had a bookshelf in their home and who would read to me at night as a kid. And that inspired me. It didn't make me scared of books. So it made me curious. And they would take me to the library. And I naturally gravitated toward the kids' horror section. So I don't know what it is that just drew me. I think maybe it was because I was born in October and I like naturally looked forward to like Halloween and the spooky season because I associated it with my birthday and presents.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll go with that.
No, that makes sense to me. I mean, I've always been into horror too, and I get that question. I'm like, I just don't remember not being into it. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
my
good
mom
one.
also got the call from the school. Like, she's reading it in fourth grade. Like, is she okay? My mom
Yeah,
was like, she's reading a full chapter book. Like, why do you care what she's reading? It's fine.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'd say your Lexile levels are okay if you're reading Stephen King in fourth grade.
Yeah, I was probably a little young for it, but I still loved it.
Yeah. I'm all for anyone reading anything at any age. If they can comprehend it and they want to have a discussion about it, great.
I'm the same way. And do people ever ask you, like, would you let your kids read your books?
If they had I would love it if my 16-year-old stepson would want to read my books, but he's finally gotten interested into what I do once this movie stuff started floating around. Then he kind of perked up. But um, if yeah, if my daughter, she's 8, if she asked to read one of my books, I honestly would not care because that would spur discussions about real life issues that we would naturally need to talk about anyway. And I would make sure she knows the difference between fiction and reality.
Mhm.
That's a big thing. Like I can't stand real life violence, and I can't take like watching even like Dr. Pimple Popper, like any kind of surgical things is it just repulses me. I don't do the true crime stuff very well, but I'm completely fine with like a horror movie that's so gruesome because I look at like a Terrifier movie as
Mhm.
like those practical effects as like a magic trick that they were able to pull off. And I don't know why I see it that way or distinguish the two that way, but I don't I'm not intimidated by fiction. I wouldn't as I wouldn't issue a blanket statement to like parents that hey, let your kid read, whatever. But for me personally and my kids, they can read whatever they want, and we'll talk about it if they have questions. I'm never going to stifle anyone's curiosity.
Hmm. No, I'm the exact same way. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my 4-year-old is obsessed with scary stuff. That's how I know she's my child. Like,
Yeah,
just obsessed. And I mean, she can't read yet, but when she does, if she wants to read my books, I'll be like, let's try it. Let's see how you do.
yeah, yeah. Give me an honest review.
Yeah, exactly. Well, did you always want to be a full-time author?
No, I wanted to be a filmmaker ever since I was little. That was the dream because I thought visually, and I had a paper route whenever I was in elementary school, and I would ride around, and I remember I like felt like I hit the lottery when I got like a no skip Walkman, and I was able to listen to music while I rode my bike, and that the music would like generate these scenes in my mind, and I would start like coming up with scenes for stories. And at the same time, I was watching a lot of movies. And I remember skipping school one day and riding my bike to 7-Eleven to rent the VHS. This wasn't intentional. I just saw the cover of Pulp Fiction, and I took Pulp Fiction home and I watched it. And it was the first time I realized there was like an artistic craft behind the camera.
Mhm.
And I was like, I want to do that, like whatever that is. And that's when I started reading screenplays. And then my parents, again, fostering this interest that I had, they bought me one of those VHS cameras that I could like
Mhm.
put a blank VHS tape in. And my twin sisters, my younger sisters, they were just my props in the movie. I got a severed head from Spencer's as a gift when I was a kid. That appeared in every single homemade movie I made. But yeah, it was filmmaking that I always wanted to do, and I kind of just fell into prose writing after college. Uh, it was just a chance thing where I had a friend reach out about writing a short story, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll have a go at that.
Cool. So, what's your writing process like? I mean, do you start with a soundtrack? Do you start with images? Or do you start with plot or character? Where do you get started?
If I'm starting a novel, it's thinking about the opening scene of a horror movie, and I always revert back to Scream. And I'm like, how can I impact someone in such a way where this like write a self-contained piece that will pique someone's interest and make them want to continue reading the book. And so I kind of just think about settings, and then I'll just drop a character in there and see what happens. And I know a fellow author, Duncan Ralston, he posted the other day about his process and about having to know the characters before beginning the story. And like one of my comments was that I have to figure out, I have to meet the character in the first draft. Um, that puts more work on the second draft as opposed to him front loading the work. There's no wrong way to do it, but I just find that I get surprised by how the characters will react sometimes, and it's nothing I could have come up with if they weren't already in that situation.
Mhm.
Like, oh, okay, this person runs from a situation like this when I envision them being this big bad person. So how can I play with that? So yeah, that's kind of where it starts. Is just
Mhm.
you know hit and play on that movie and seeing what happens. Now with short stories, it's different. I have to have it because there's not a lot of room to
Mhm.
mess around. If you have 3,000 to 5,000 words, and I'm just aimlessly wandering through the dark, I'll get up to 4,000 words and realize I have to end this thing, and that's
Mhm.
not good. So I'll try to come up with an ending and kind of meander my way to that ending in a short story.
Mhm. So, with novels, are you more of a pantser? And with short stories, you're more of a plotter?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
I'm
or
kind of the same way. I agree with you. I feel like you need to get to know your characters because the novels I've tried to plot meticulously, they never turn out well. And the ones where I'm like, let's just see what happens, those always are sparklier. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I was put into a weird situation this year with this latest novel that I wrote, Lila in the Flesh. I had to pitch it to my agent and then to my publisher, and then they said, "Okay, write the first three chapters and a detailed synopsis for the rest of the book." I said, "How detailed are we talking?" And they were like, "We want, kind of 3 pages, scene by scene breakdown of what happens." And I freaked out because that's not what I do. And I already had imposter syndrome already because it was with a big publisher.
Mhm.
And I was like, I can't do this. And I had like this little mini panic attack. And luckily, I've been able to meet authors who are way more successful than I am, who've been doing it a lot longer than I have. And that's one of the values of this community is I think people are willing to help whenever they can.
For
And
sure.
I reached out to Stephen Graham Jones. I just emailed him and I said, dude, I've listened to you on so many podcasts talking about how you just sit down and write your books. It just comes out. You don't plot. Um, Back when you had to follow the rules and turn in an outline, what did you do? Like I know you can just pitch anything you want now and write whatever you want. Anybody would publish you, but back in the day, what did you do? And he said, well, I would write an outline that proved I could tell a story and then throw it in the trash. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. But what happened was is that kind of freed me up to know that I wasn't married to this outline. So I kind of wrote and my outline ended up being 7 pages. Like I just went even more detailed, and I kind of liked it when I was finished with it. It felt like I had this safety net, and I still had room to veer off the path as long as I just came back to it. And I turned it in, and they liked it. And when I went to write the book, a lot of stuff changed. A lot of characters appeared who weren't there, um, but the ending's basically the same. And so if I had to out or if I had to like plot again, I wouldn't be as scared as I was. It's just it's a lot of work up front.
Yeah. Do you think that's a process you'll use again, or do you prefer just let's see what happens?
If it's my preference, I'll always go with let's see what happens because when I went to write those scenes in Lila in the Flesh, it felt like I was watching something I'd already watched like
Hmm.
recently. It's just like replaying a movie again rather
Interesting.
than writing and being surprised. Like I lost that barometer that I have when I'm writing, and I write something that genuinely scares me. I'll get that little like rush in my stomach, and I'll be like, okay, I know. Hopefully, if I freak myself out, then that'll translate to the reader. That kind of went away when I wrote the stuff in the outline. So when I got there, I knew what was going to happen, but I just did my best to surprise myself again. And I'm proud of it. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. Well, I was going to get to this later, but since you brought it up, so now that you've finished this draft, what is your typical process once you finish a draft of a book? Who reads it first, and then what happens?
As soon as I type in the end, I just, wait at least 2 days. Um, I know other authors wait longer. I know some authors jump in the next day. It's very difficult for me not to just want to jump in the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go stir crazy if I'm not working on something. So I'll give myself at least 2 days, and then I'll come back to it, read through it, and tweak things here or there. Um, when I'm reading through it on the second time, I'm not necessarily trying to proofread or edit. I'm trying to see if the story. I'm trying to see if I feel that same emotion again,
Mm-hmm.
and if the emotion's still there, of course I'll fix anything I naturally stumble upon, but I'm really trying to feel the mood and the tone of the piece, and if the continuity matches up, things like that, and if anything takes me out of the book.
Mhm.
Um, so after I'll do a second pass like that, and I'm not an editor. I'm not a good proofreader, especially with my own stuff, and that's that. I mean, I'm a former English teacher, and I'm a horrible editor and proofreader. I don't know how to read someone's work and say, "Hey, maybe try this." Like I can only do it for my stuff. I don't know why that is. So I'll send the that first draft or the second draft away to my wife and my mom, because if there are two people who are unabashedly critical of me, it is my wife and my mom. They will say this sucks or this is great. So when they say this is great, I know that they mean it, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's good to have that honest feedback. So once I get their feedback, and they'll catch a lot of stuff. Like my wife's a great editor and proofreader. Then, depending on if I'm self-publishing or if I'm sending it to a publisher, I will hire an editor if I'm self-publishing and do the back and forth dance with the editor, and then I'll release it. No, no, I'll do. I'll have an ARC, and then I'll have some ARC readers read that and then release it. If I'm doing the publishing route, I'm not going to waste my money hiring an editor when that's their job. So I'll send it to the publisher and have them have their editors work their magic and do the dance with them, and then have the art go out. It's amazing how many things ARC readers catch. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then it gets released in the wild.
Awesome. My process is kind of similar. I mean, my mom is like yours, very critical. She will catch things. She's told me, this sucks. I don't think you can salvage this. Like I've just written off total novels because she's like, there's nothing you can do about this. And it hurts, but she's right. So has that ever happened to you where something is just totally unsalvageable?
Hmm. I don't know. I've been told on one story, and this is ironic because it's my mama asked me for a short story, a romance story, for her
Hmm.
birthday one year.
Oof.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, like normally when I feel like when I balk at something, that's like a challenge that I can try to tackle. So first of all, I'm like, okay, this is weird that I'm writing a romance thing for my mom. But that aside, let me explore this. Let me see if I can get to basic human emotions, which I struggle with in real life. So let's explore it. And I and of course, as I wrote it, it started out as a love story, and then genre elements came in, and it ended as a tragic love story. I thought I was proud of it, and I sent it to her, and she was like, um, "Thanks for my present." She was like, "This is your version of a love story," and I was just like, "Yeah, I guess." But I ended up sending it to this publisher, and it got published in a literary magazine. So there we
There
go.
you go.
It ended up in It Haunts the Mind, I think.
Yeah. Just goes
Yeah,
to show it's good to challenge yourself to write outside of what you think you can do.
absolutely. Yeah. And reading outside of the genre is so
Mhm.
beneficial.
It's true. I mean, I've been reading obviously so much horror all the time, but every now and then I take a moment and I read something else, and it gives me a lot of ideas for the next thing I want to write, even if it's not horror at all.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really into nonfiction, and I'm into more like Cormac McCarthy and like Dennis Lehane, like those type of like it's like bordering on literary and mystery and philosophical stuff. I just I love that.
Hmm.
And I've heard like comedians say like if they do a show or if they like are writing specials or whatever, they don't go home and watch comedy. Um, they'll go home and because they experience it differently. They see the
Mhm.
tricks, and I'm kind of the same way with horror, and because of my writing schedule, whenever it's time, whenever I do have time to watch something, I don't immediately jump to horror. Um, I like to listen to podcasts that make me laugh. So yeah,
I'm the same. If I love listening to audiobooks, but they have to be nonfiction. I cannot, like, I don't know what it is about fiction. I just can't grasp it. But nonfiction, I absolutely love.
that's a good point. I've never thought of that. Like on road trips, I can listen to a podcast,
Mhm.
two people talking, and be completely engaged and not miss a word. But if I can completely zone out on a novel. That's interesting.
Do you have any recommendations for podcasts or nonfiction books?
Podcasts, I love the King Cast. They bring in like an author or a director or an actor, and they let that person pick a Stephen King book or movie or short story, whatever,
Mhm.
and they talk about it for an hour, hour
Cool.
and a half, and they even had Stephen King come on there twice. It was really cool. So I love the King Cast. I love Talking Scared. Um,
That's a good one.
yes, and I love it because it feels like I'll hear the guests that come on there, and I'm like, hey, I was just at a convention with this person. Hey, I
Mhm.
see a dog. I see a dog in the background.
Yeah, that's Tater Tot. Don't mind him.
Blends right in with that couch.
He sure does.
Um, yeah, so that's and Smartless. That's my go-to for
I've heard so many good things about that one.
yeah. Well, the hook is so good. First of all, you have three great comedic actors. You have Will Arnett, Sean Hayes, and Jason Bateman. And the hook is one of them brings on a mystery guest, and the other two have no idea who it is. And then they reveal the guest, and you hear their reactions, and then they get into the interview, and it's hilarious and very insightful sometimes. As far as books, I love one of my favorite books of all time is Killers of the Flower Moon.
That one was so good. That was
Yeah,
so.
it like really affected me in a way that fiction books rarely do.
Mhm.
It was so tragic. And then like once you think it can't get any more disturbing and tragic, then it's just like another deep knife in the wound when you figure out like what was really going on.
Mhm.
And it was just made into that 4 hour Martin Scorsese movie.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I know I just said I don't do much true crime, but this one, uh, shoot, I have it. I'll be gone in the dark.
Oh, yep, that was great.
Yeah, because I looked at that more as an almost as a character study of the author, more
Hmm.
so than what she was writing about. And knowing her history of how she passed away before finishing the book and how her husband helped to complete the book based on her notes, and then the real life story of them catching the killer after the fact, like her book ended without her knowing who the killer was, and then
Mhm.
she passed away and they figured out who it was. But yeah, that book is phenomenal.
Mhm. A very different take on a true crime story.
Yes, and I think that's why I connected to it so well.
Hmm.
I think it was almost like Hunter S. Thompson type of reporting, where where
Hmm.
the reporter is the character in the novel, or not novel, in the journalistic piece, I guess.
Hmm.
I guess Truman Capote kind of started that.
Yeah. But yeah, I did love that one too. I mean, I love true crime. So all my podcasts are like morbid and or any like hidden history type stuff really appeals to me. So like
Yeah,
Killers of the Flower Moon, I like medical history too. So anything creepy like that. But yeah,
where,
nonfiction is the best for audiobooks, in my opinion.
where it gets like tricky with me is like like the Netflix mini series
Mm,
of serial killers where they'll have the hottest A-listers play. I just put myself in like the victim's family's shoes.
mm-hmm.
like my if my daughter or my son was killed by a serial killer, and then I turn on Netflix and Ryan Murphy's making a mini series about the guy who killed my son, and I get to watch 8 episodes of that, and it's played by this hunky A-list actor. I don't know. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit, and it might be insanely hypocritical compared, with what I write and how people view horror in general. So, but
I don't know. I haven't seen any of those series kind of for the same reason. It just, I don't know. It's too, I mean, it is based on real life. Whereas horror, we can make up whatever we want.
yes, it's the glamorization of the
Yeah.
serial killer and what they did and how they're feeding the public salacious details, and like it's so morbid, and it's
Mhm.
human nature. We want to slow down and look at the car wreck. So I get it. I just like as I've grown up and I guess matured a little bit in that regard, and had a family. I think that's really
Mhm.
what it is having a family and empathizing with the victims rather than being so focused on the psychology of the killer.
I totally get that. Once I had kids, I completely changed the kinds of things I felt I could read or write, which I didn't think would happen. But yeah, anything involving kids, I'm like, no, thank you.
See, I can write fiction involving anything, but for some reason, it's like the real life stuff. Just I don't know.
Yeah, same.
Different.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about religious horror because, as everybody knows, The Exorcist house, huge deal. So, with The Exorcist house, you really did not skimp on the scares. And I would love to know more about the inspiration behind those books in particular and why you think they're so effective at scaring people.
Um, for me, it's the possession genre more than anything. It's that universal fear of not being in control of yourself. It's also, if you're looking at it as someone else being possessed, it's the fear of losing someone you love to something. And I get like if I can tap into those like base universal fears and then dump genre elements on top of it, I think that's what works when people say my stuff is scary. Like even, talking about like mean spirited, um, I wasn't thinking like ghosts and demons and creepy things. I was thinking more along the lines of, you know, not being a good parent
Mhm.
and losing custody of my kid and, things like that. But on a more surface level, I think it's more the genre, the subgenre of exorcisms and possessions.
Mhm.
I'm a super fan of ever since I was traumatized by The Exorcist. So that carries a huge readership in itself.
Mhm.
It also blocks off a lot of people. A lot of people are not able or willing to look at it as a subgenre. They look at it more as pushing religion or as not being religious enough. I've gotten critiques for both. I've
Mhm.
I've made the mistake early on of reading reviews, and people would say, "I don't want to read this crap. It's religious propaganda," and then I'd laugh at that because I'm nowhere near organized religion personally. But then I would get people who said that I didn't go far enough with the religious stuff. That kind of because I kind of focused on more so faith and the power of belief than a
Mhm.
named deity, and
Mhm.
that's kind of one of the running themes, I guess, in the Exorcist house. And that's something I got critiqued for.
Hmm.
But I try to build atmosphere more than anything, and I'll use like 1408, Stephen King's brilliant short story. It's probably my favorite one that he's ever written. And even the film, um, there's a structure where, so if anyone's unfamiliar with the story, it's basically a guy who lost someone who has made his living now debunking hauntings and writing about them. So he goes to this hotel and stays in the room, and scary things happen. Now, what the genius is that I try to steal from in that is that when this guy gets to the hotel, there's this long talk with the hotel manager about the room where he's begging this guy not to stay in there. He's saying he lists everybody that's died there, how they died, the different ways, different things people have seen in there.
Hmm.
And this is like the first third of the book and the movie. So by the time you even walk down the hallway to that room, you are terrified.
Hmm.
So what I stole from that is building atmosphere and lore before dropping a character in there.
Hmm.
So if you can build a sense of dread, if you know something really bad is in that basement, and then you have a character who's hell bent on getting into that basement because he just bought the house and wants to know what's in it, then that becomes, I think, intriguing because it's that situational irony where the audience is ahead of the character,
Hmm.
and I think they slip into that fallacy where they think the characters are stupid because they have more knowledge than the character. Um, I've got, I've gotten so many people who said that Daniel, one of the protagonists in the book, it's really Daniel and Nora. It's their story, but he finds this door to the basement that is nailed shut in the shape. The nails are in the shape of a cross. And then, I hear people say, "Why would you even open the door?" I'd say, "Nope," and get the hell out of there. Well, in real life, if you just invested all your money buying a house, are you really going to take your kid, your wife, and abandon all of your finances? What if you don't believe in that stuff? It certainly wouldn't throw me off if I bought a new house that was supposedly haunted, and I would. That'd be awesome.
That'd be really cool. Yeah.
Just because I don't believe in the supernatural. The closest I
Hmm.
get is aliens, and that's a possibility, just based on statistics. But I'm just not a. I don't buy into ghosts or
Huh.
demons or anything like that. So anyway, I don't know. That's kind of my long-winded response.
No, that makes sense. Also, I'm very surprised you don't believe in ghosts. I do. So it's interesting to meet a horror writer who does not believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, and I certainly do not look down on people. I think of that. I think it's the X Files where he has that poster that says "I want to believe." I want to believe. How reassuring that would be to know that there is something after death. Um, I just, yeah, I can't wrap my mind around it, and yeah, I've had talks with, a fellow author, John Ward, is a paranormal investigator,
Hmm.
and I've done book signings where he was sitting right beside me, and we talk about this stuff. And obviously he's a full unbeliever, and I'm a skeptic, and we had some interesting conversations.
Bet.
So yeah, I would love it if I thought that mystery was out there. I just
Hmm.
I just don't. I think it's once the light goes out, it's just like it was before you were born.
Hmm. Well, maybe you just need to go somewhere that's super haunted and spend the night and see what happens.
You can rent out the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, and for like it's like under $1,000. So you can get like five of your friends to each chip in and go have a keg party in
The
one of the most
bargain.
haunted locations in the world. Um, and I think, the Moundsville State Penitentiary in West Virginia, you can rent it out as well. So there are tons of haunted places that I could throw myself into.
So you're telling me that's your next birthday party?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how these books do. That would be quite the event.
That would actually be super fun.
Yeah, yeah, it would. Like, and I love going on ghost tours and stuff like that.
Hmm.
One of the best times I had with my wife, we went up to Columbus, Ohio, and went to I think it was like the second largest cemetery in the state, and it was just miles of just like little paths through the tombstones, and then you see these mausoleums, and it's obvious who had generational wealth and who were
Hmm.
peasants, and um, I got to hear all this history of who these people were and then the supposed sightings and everything. And I find it fascinating. I love reading anywhere I go on travel, I'll buy books about haunted things in that state. So I love reading about it. I love learning. I want to believe that. I just, if I had to wager everything I had on if there are ghosts or not, I couldn't do it. I couldn't put it on ghosts.
Have you ever been to Savannah?
Yeah.
You didn't feel the ghosts in Savannah?
No, I live like 2 hours from Savannah, so it's not, I went to Covington a couple weeks ago, and it was nothing but Vampire Diaries. So that was haunting because, yeah, my wife loves that show, and that's where they filmed it, and it's just like nothing. Like every store in this little square is just all Ian Somerhalder and Sexy Vampire Man. So yeah, I don't know. I would love to believe that I can get down with the idea of energy, and when someone passes, what happens to that energy? Can it affect the physical world? You know, I can talk scientifically about it. Um, I just don't. It would take empirical evidence for me to get down with it. And even
I get that.
today, where you can't even trust what you see, you know.
That's true. Yeah. Well, would you play around with a Ouija board though?
That's funny. That's funny because I have a Ouija board. It's right
Mhm.
up there on top of my bookshelf,
Mm-mm.
and it's still in the package.
Maybe keep it there.
It's a Target Ouija board made from Hasbro, and I will not open it.
Good for you. I wouldn't either. I would never play with a Ouija board. Mm-mm.
I think it's from something, this universal thing of there's no benefit from it. Like Candyman, if you play around with Candyman and try to see if you can summon him, is the plus side that you see him and get gored and disemboweled by a hook?
Mm.
Um, or is it that he doesn't show up and you debunked something? I look at Ouija boards kind of like that. Like, if I break out a Ouija board and try to talk to a lost loved one, I guess people could get into, the that aspect of it as a positive of being able to talk to people on the other side. Um, However, that would depress the hell out of me because if I was on the other side and living my best life, afterlife, I would hate to have to come back and talk to someone over a Ouija board.
That's fair. I mean, I went to a Catholic college and I asked my local priest in residence to tell me about, demons and stuff. And he just said, never play with a Ouija board. If you put the call out there, something's going to answer and it's not going to be something good. So just don't do it. So I will not do that. I will not be doing that. Never.
Yeah, well, when I went to, are you going to dark drafts this year?
Not this year. Maybe next year if I can get childcare.
Yeah, oh, I feel you on that one. But yeah, I was set up last year at dark drafts, and I didn't know it. It was supposedly the most haunted room at the bar, and as I was taking down my stuff and packing up my books, they were gearing up for their ghost hunt. So John Ward, he was
Mhm.
one of the people leading the ghost hunt, and a few other people were there, like talking about their instruments and what they're going to use. And the people who signed up for it were kind of filtering in, and I'm just trying to pack up and get out of their way as quickly as possible. And then they break out all these like little instruments, and one of them was a Ouija board. So there you go.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I was with it until you said Ouija board. Just no. Hard pass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the difference between that and like, what are those things? It's like you can set it on a table and you push a little ball and it, like, swings different ways.
Like a scrying crystal?
Something like that. Like any type of instrument. Like, why are we just um, focusing on? Why are we, targeting Ouija boards? There's so many more things out there.
I suppose it's unfairly discriminated
It
against.
is so stigmatized, that poor Ouija board.
Well, clearly ghosts don't scare you, so I know that you are very difficult to scare. So, what do you think is the scariest book you have ever read? That's not your own.
Uh, The Exorcist,
Mm,
it still holds up so well, and for reasons that I've mentioned before, and that it takes time in building the dread and the suspense.
hmm
It doesn't start out with a bang. It's just this slow building creep factor, and it's so well written. And I responded to it because the author, knows how to write screenplays, and I just read it at that age where it kind of still felt real, and
hmm
maybe this could happen. But also, Pet Cemetery. Some of the imagery in that is so scary, and I know, like, a big part of what terrified King when he wrote it was, the death of the kids, and
hmm
having to emotionally explore what that would feel like as the protagonist, the parent. That's not what scares me about that book. It's his use of atmosphere and descriptions and imagery, and he uses sound so well. Like when
hmm
especially the ending, the very last scene, you hear a door opening, you hear feet walking across the floor. Her breath sounds like there's soil in her throat. I mean, it's sound after sound, and it's all happening behind the guy. And I get chills on the back of my neck just thinking about that. And then, like, you hear her voice. And that's like the end. I'm like,
hmm
oh. Yeah. So, um, more recently, I would say, A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay really,
hmm
really messed me up because of the ambiguity of it.
hmm
And I know, like, it gets critiqued. There are people who firmly believe that it's a psychological issue with the girl, and there are people who believe it's demonic. I personally believe Tremblay lays more foundation for it to be psychological than demonic. Um, but if it goes that route, it's even scarier because of the finale. It's so disturbing. So it's stuff like that. Anything that stays with me after I put it down.
hmm
Stolen Tongues. Completely forgot about that.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that one just made me realize how much I need to step my game up, because I read that right after, I think, I got into the books of horror group when The Exorcist House came out, and then, like, people were also talking about this book Stolen Tongues, and I finally bought it and read it, and, like, I knew the circumstances in which it was published and how, like, and all that, and I was just blown away by how it felt like this raw, visceral experience.
Mm-hmm.
And any book that can make me feel that way, it doesn't matter about the prose. It doesn't matter about plot holes. I could care less about any of that. If you can hit me on a gut visceral level, then you've done something that the most polished writers have yet to do. So
Mm-hmm. Very much agree.
it's
With
hard
pretty
to
much, I think I've
say.
read almost all of those you mentioned, so agreed. What about the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Movie. This is boring, but I have to go again with The Exorcist.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
I mean, I can. There are tons of scary movies, but I watched that during a sleepover. One of my friends rented the VHS from Blockbuster and threw it in. And I remember being so bored at the beginning of it for like the first 40 minutes. And then out of nowhere, this little girl has a seizure. And I have sisters, my twin sisters, they had epilepsy at the time and they would have seizures. And I saw this girl have a seizure. And then it had a close up on her face and that her eyes rolled back to the whites and her mouth opened and that image like really chilled me and then this guttural human like inhuman masculine growl came out of her and I was like I remember feeling like I was going to lose control of my bowels. That's the closest I can like describe, like literally I felt that way. And I had to turn away from the screen. And I don't think I made it through the movie. I remember looking out the window and just hearing that voice of the possessed girl and being traumatized by that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, movies, The Exorcist. Um, what's another movie that really like? I guess when I saw the Blair Witch Project in theaters for the
Mm-hmm.
first time, The Sixth Sense. When I saw that, um, and I'll go with Paranormal Activity. Those were all theatrical experiences that I saw, at a younger age, and they just hit me in a way that I don't know. I don't know that they would have the same impact if I like threw it on right now and watched it at home in the safety of my living room.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like The Grudge terrified me when I was a kid, and I've watched it recently. And I'm like, big whoop. But I think the original It still holds up. I liked the remake, but the original was my favorite movie as a kid, and terrifying. I did not want to be alone in rooms because I thought the clown was going to come out. Like that one really stuck with me, and the book was great too.
yes, yeah. I'll go with you on that one. Tim Curry just had a way of like grounding Pennywise,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that it was shot for TV as a miniseries, it made it feel more real.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel stylized, um, especially the first half of it. I mean, the second half gets a little ridiculous, as does the book, as does the remake. I mean, it's really in the first half that I find all the chilling things.
Mm-hmm. Very good visuals there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what is next on the horizon for you? So I know you've finished Lila and the Flesh, but you're always working on so many things. So what's coming next?
Right now, I am working on. I'm always writing fiction for my Patreon, and sometimes it's short stories. But I've moved into doing serialized novels on there, where I will release a part every month. And if I aim for like 4,000, 5,000 words for each part, and think of it in terms of like 10 to 12 episodes, then by the time I'm finished, I'll have a slim novel, and that. So I'm always working on that. And the current one is called "My Corpse Has a Heartbeat," and I think because I'm writing that right now, that's kind of the reason I went off on my little tangent about true crime and the fetishization of serial killers, because it is a first person serial killer book that is trying to hold up a mirror to the reader, and it starts off kind of as a black comedy, and then it kind of, if I pull it off, it'll sweep people off their feet and then make you feel like an accomplice and disgusted by
Ooh,
the end. If I can pull it, that's my goal at least. Um, I've
interesting.
got,
So you're releasing it as you write it.
yeah, and I let them know like this is a work in progress. This
Mhm.
is professionally unedited. Um, and I'll release like each previous part comes out like next month. I'll release part 7, and it'll have all 7 parts, so people can get caught up whenever. And of course, I run into editing and continuity issues and things like that. But like every time I make a post with a new part, I make sure people know what they're getting in for,
Mhm.
getting, and my subscribers know that. And like I did that with Dead End Tunnel, which is a book that I self-published after I wrote on Patreon.
Mhm.
And what's on Patreon is vastly different than what's published. And it's because I let my wife and my mom read it after I wrote all the parts for Patreon, and my mom read it and said the mother character in this book sucks. She does not do anything when this happens, and that's not realistic. And I was thinking of like the different women I know, the different mothers I know, and I was like, Mom, they're not. There are bad mothers out there. Like there are not all great mothers. Like this character that I'm writing, this is how she is reacting. She's not making good choices, and I'm aware of that. And she's like, fair point, but is that what you want to project? Is that what you want to contribute and put out there in the world? Is that a character you want to keep out there?
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, fair point. I'll see it. If it benefits the narrative, I'll change some things. So I went back and reread it through that lens, and it became so much more interesting when I turned this woman into someone who, her like primal animalistic instincts kick in for self-preservation of herself and her children versus who she was, which is like this barely there cowering, um, too reliant on her husband character.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was the book was strengthened by that. So I don't even remember what the question was and why I went off on that long tangent, but
No, that was interesting because I usually don't let anybody read anything I write until I have gone over it myself first because I end up rewriting so much of it. So the
yeah.
idea of releasing it as you write it is super interesting to me. So I'm glad you told me about that because that's fascinating.
And I preface it as an experiment. I
Hmm.
let them know like you're not watching me write a novel in real time. What you're watching is me literally trying to serialize a story. Like each part should be self-contained and also end on a cliffhanger.
Hmm.
Like I want it to feel like, especially with Dead End Tunnel, I was like, I want you to feel like you're watching an episode of Lost,
Cool.
basically, like where it ends, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to read that next part. Um, so in writing My Corpse Has a Heartbeat, and it being a very dark and disturbing, and um, it's extreme in certain parts, but it's not for extreme sake. And
Hmm.
I'll be honest, it's scary writing a book that's transgressive, that's intentionally throwing ideas and taboo things in your face and releasing it without anyone else reading it except my patrons.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you this, when I wrote Dead End Tunnel, I would get comments on each part. Oh my gosh, can't wait to see what happens next. With this one, it's crickets. So I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know what's going to happen. It's I'm excited because I know how it's going to end. You know, I have
Mhm.
everything mapped out. But yeah, we'll see.
Cool. Well, I know we're getting on close to time, so last question I want to ask you. So I know you've recently signed with a literary agent and you're going after some traditional publishing. So what advice would you have for aspiring authors who want to have a career like yours?
Um, like writing full time.
Writing full time.
Well, there's several several routes to sustain a life um, by writing. It's just what method works best for you and what kind of work are you willing to put in.
Mhm.
If you're like me and you mostly want to focus on writing and letting everyone else kind of take the reins and putting that product together, then like aim for an agent and
Mhm.
aim for the traditionally published route. Now, the odds, obviously are stacked against you, um, but uh, unless you want to like grind it out and really make make people aware of your work, um, and you self-publish or you publish with an indie press, which is what I've done for the up until this point. You know, you need to write every day.
Mhm.
I know some people that well, I'll just keep it on me and not like prescribe advice. Like I have to write every day to stay in the habit and to build words, to build content to sell.
Mhm.
Um, I would say have diversified income. Use obviously you have Amazon, Kindle
Mhm.
Unlimited. You have those kind of royalties. Sell signed copies through your website. Try a Patreon. I didn't know what Patreon was a couple of years
Mhm.
ago, and I just tried it, and now, um, honestly, Patreon alone pays my mortgage, and that's something that baffles me.
Yeah, awesome.
Um, but yeah, people aren't going to read your book if unless they know it exists,
Hmm.
and then once they know it exists, they also know hundreds of other books exist. Why do they want to read yours?
Hmm.
Um, Connect with your readers and make them feel a part of and respected. I was telling another author this in my little chat group where I said, one thing I always try to do is if I post something on social media, it doesn't matter what platform it is. If someone comments, I always try to respond. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's arduous. Like I'll look and I have 200 comments on a post. If I go through and just any kind of response, just a simple acknowledgement,
Hmm.
that could mean the world to someone.
Hmm.
I mean, think about if you just commented on Stephen King's post and he liked your comment. I'm by no means comparing myself to Stephen King. I'm just saying, like, that's the impact an author could have on someone who looks up and idolizes them.
For sure.
I get starstruck all the time when people who I respect and look up to will comment or like anything I do. So that engagement with the audience, I think, is crucial. Um,
Hmm.
I'm a firm believer in building like that core 1,000 fans that'll be with you no matter what. And once you have that safety net, then as long as you're putting in the work and trying to come up with new ideas and staying relevant, not relying on uh, past accomplishments,
Hmm.
that's I just have to go about my day like everything is going to go away. There will be no more royalties. I have no one that's going to buy anything. I have to look at it that way and not rest on my laurels, I guess.
Sounds relaxing.
Yeah. It's not, and when you have anxiety, this is a this is a career that is not conducive for for panic attacks. So it's all about perspective and balance. You know, the things I complain about today are things I prayed for 2 years ago. So
It's a good way of looking at it, for sure.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Last thing, I promise. Where can people find you and keep up with you and your work?
I'm mostly on Facebook, but I mean, you can go to my website. It's www.nickrobertsauthor.com that has links to all of my socials, and you can buy signed books when I have them in stock. And yeah, uh, I'm on TikTok, Instagram. Spooky WV is normally my handle. Spooky West Virginia. That's picked that early on and kind of just stuck with me. I'm now living in South Carolina, and it's too late to change it. So,
Oh, well. Well, again, thank you so much. This was awesome.
oh, thanks for having me. Anytime.
Awesome.